Hello, guys and gals, me Mutahar, and oh boy, we gotta talk about something pretty big that dropped in the gaming world today. Apparently, Billy Mitchell has been reinstated of all of his world records for his video game career that for the last few years people have been making fun of. Now, Billy Mitchell is a pretty controversial character. I'm pretty sure you've seen him made fun of numerous times on actual live television shows, animated shows, and of course, throughout the larger YouTube community. Now, one of the largest channels that's basically been on the Billy, the poop wagon here is Carl Jobs. Now, Carl has been covering Billy Mitchell for a while. In fact, even 2 weeks ago, his latest video was, I just exposed Billy Mitchell's dumbest lie ever. And of course, cheater Billy Mitchell is running scared. Is Billy Mitchell going to prison? I'm not entirely sure there. That's for the law to decide. Now, obviously, for full context's sake, let me wind you back a little bit in time, okay? So, to understand, back in the day, Billy Mitchell actually had his actual scores taken off one of the biggest sites called Twin Galaxies. Now, Twin Galaxies, for anybody following around here, is basically a video game player achievement scenario, okay? So basically you submit them your records, and back in the day you submitted them your records, and they would give you a plaque and a certificate of achievement. Think of them like the Guinness Book records for people who achieved high scores on their favorite arcade games, NES games, so on and so forth. Now, back in the day, Billy Mitchell was one of the champion video game players, okay? He built his reputation off being the king of Kong. Now, back in the day, Billy Mitchell was one of the champion video game players, okay? He built his reputation off being the king of Kong. Back in the old days of MAME arcades was a game that most people watching probably don't remember, probably weren't even alive for it, to be honest with you, but Billy Mitchell claimed to have some of the highest scores in Donkey Kong. Now, it wasn't even just Donkey Kong that we were talking about his records, right? It wasn't just the Donkey Kong record. There were also other records that Billy Mitchell was known for. One of them also involved the classic Pac-Man game. But to give you a quick rundown of what one of the chief allegations were, one of the chief evidences against Billy Mitchell at the time, were when people started to look at the animations on the Donkey Kong game in comparison to some of the submitted footage that was used to get the high score record. So, for instance, according to MAME, this is how a stage is built. So you can see that as the stage is rendering in, it's built in chunks. So you've got the ladders, the floor, and then the sprites for the actual characters building in. And of course, following in how the stage was supposed to be built, this is direct footage captured by Chris Gleed, showing again how a real piece of hardware versus an emulation build. So you see the ladders are building from the right side. So again, if we look at it real carefully, then the floor, and then of course the point number, the point value, and then obviously the actual screenshots or the sprites for the characters and the power-ups and whatnot. So the way that the stage is rendered or built is different, or loaded in, rather, is different between a real piece of hardware and an emulated piece of hardware. Now, obviously, if you're talking about video game records, it's best when you have original hardware. With emulation, you could potentially inject possible cheats, as we've seen with previous speedrunning, previous video game records, right? Sometimes a mod can exist that can cause an unfair advantage, which invalidates an entire score, which is one of the chief reasons why people questioned Billy Mitchell's original records. So again, looking at the footage from Billy Mitchell, you can see that in this actual arcade cabinet, it's built, or at least it's loading in what appears to be the same emulation style, which could be a emulated board, so to speak. That was the allegation at the time. And I highly recommend, if you want to look more into Billy Mitchell's records, Carl is a great resource for this, since he's pretty much been at the forefront of talking about Billy Mitchell as this situation developed over the last several years. Now, obviously, it's not a shock to say that Billy Mitchell's entire life persona and his business and his image was built around being the king of these classic video game systems, right? And achieving these really high scores. To lose that, to have that invalidated, means that this guy's entire, image is basically destroyed, at least professionally, in the eyes of the world. And Billy is not somebody kind for it. Billy is the type of individual to throw lawsuits out like they're candy, okay? Like it's trick-or-treat night at Halloween. He's handing out slap motions, lawsuits, so on and so forth. And even Carl, who I've described earlier in this as being the forefront of talking about Billy in the public eye, has faced the largest legal scrutiny, at least for YouTubers, from Billy Mitchell, as far as my knowledge goes. So yeah, he's not exactly a friendly character when it comes to criticizing him. And again, I don't expect him not to be when his businesses are built out there. That said, suing sucks, and Billy Mitchell is the key on delivering the suck. 5 years ago, Billy Mitchell said this to the world too about this situation. It's crazy that this is half a decade.
Hi, I'm Billy Mitchell. We're here at the Midwest Gaming Classic. I'm here with Old School Gamer magazine. I've been asked to address things that are recently in the media. The fact of the matter is, now there is a true professional due diligence being done to investigate things that happened as far as 35 years ago in a professional manner, not in a shock jock mentality designed to create hits. We will show that everything that has been done, everything was done professionally, according to the rules, according to the scoreboard, the integrity that was set up, not 2014 forward by the current regime who wants to reach back 35 years. Everything will be transparent. Everything will be available. I wish I had it in my hands right now. I wish I could hand it to you. But it's taken a considerable amount of time. Witnesses, documents, everything will be made available to you. Nothing will be withheld. You absolutely have my commitment to that. We've been at this since 1982, and it's not going to stop now.
I won't lie, dude, this guy's putting in more effort to exonerate themselves than goddamn fucking OJ was, so it's crazy. Video games are serious business, and obviously for records like this that basically build your brand, no shit, it's serious business. But let's look at what just happened. Billy Mitchell ended up getting his actual world records reinstated from a company that he was suing, Twin Galaxies, for defamation at the time. So a couple days ago, there was a private settlement, actually, so we don't really know what happened, since it's a confidential settlement, obviously. But Billy Mitchell says, today, January 16th, 2024, Twin Galaxies has reinstated all of the video game world records that I've achieved in my career, effective immediately. Twin Galaxies' statement on its website reads in a pertinent part. In fair consideration of the expert opinion provided by Dr. Zaida on behalf of Mr. Mitchell and consistent with Twin Galaxies' dedication to the meticulous documentation and preservation of video game score history, Twin Galaxies shall heretofore reinstate all of the Mr. Mitchell scores as part of the official historical database on Twin Galaxies' website. I am relieved and satisfied to reach this resolution after an almost 6-year ordeal. And obviously, I have to imagine that 6 years of a defamation lawsuit is incredibly costly on both sides. Obviously, that's not a brand new statement. So going to Twin Galaxies' website, what's interesting to look over here is Billy Mitchell's Donkey Kong performance of 1 million, the King of Kong score, 1,050,200, the mortgage broker score, and 1,062,800, the boomer score, were originally accepted and posted as record performances by Twin Galaxies based on either videotape submission, live referee verification, or a combination of videotape submission and live referees. So at the time, you had to send in a video proof of your record. You also had to have somebody from the organization present to affirm if that score was met. On February 2nd, 2018, Twin Galaxies Education began investigating a dispute claim filed by a community member, asserting that these performances were not generated by unmodified original Donkey Kong arcade hardware. So when I showed you those levels building up, there was, again, the claim that maybe there was emulation afoot, which could actually allow you to inject possible alterations to help you assist getting a better score, versus real hardware, which you can't modify. April 12, 2018, actually, you can modify real hardware, it's just emulation, it would be a lot easier. But anyways, Twin Galaxies removed all of the scores and banned him from competing on the Galaxies competitive leaderboards. And this was centered upon a technical basis of what Twin Galaxies believed to be demonstrated impossibility of original unmodified Donkey Kong arcade hardware to produce images shown in the videotape recording of the disputed adjudicated performances. So again, they looked at how that level was built and how things were different, and there was a serious concern from Twin Galaxies parts. So recently, again, there's been an expert witness that has come by known as Dr. Michael Zaida, an individual who holds a Bachelor of Arts in Computer and Information Science from University of California, San Diego, a Master of Science in Computer and Information Science from the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and a Doctorate of Science from the University of Washington School of Engineering, and who has been qualified as an expert by California and federal courts. So I actually have his expert opinion from 7th November 2023, Michael Zaida, and he actually states what he believes can exonerate Billy Mitchell and get his scores reinstated. So there are many people that have made strong statements on the technological impossibilities that have personally discovered in the video recordings of Billy Mitchell's various gameplays of Donkey Kong. All of these tests are looking for the sources of the anomalies on the Billy Mitchell videotapes. Many claim to have wired their systems exactly as Billy Mitchell did, but in the end failed to achieve the same anomalies. Here's some opinions on these issues. When Billy is recording from the arcade machine running at 60 FPS, he plugs the 60 FPS stream into a 2-bit converter box, and the converter outputs a 30 FPS stream to a VHS VCR for recording. There is no apparent sync signal from the 60 FPS device to the converter box outputting a 30 FPS stream. The purpose of the sync signal would be to make sure that there's some kind of frame alignment. Without the sync signal and frame alignment, we actually don't know what the converter is really doing. If we had a frame alignment, we would expect the 2 frames from the 60 FPS stream would be used to create 1 frame in some fashion. If we don't have perfect frame alignment, then we are going to see visual artifacts such as the anomalies at issues. So he's claiming because of the FPS and frame mismatch, the frame alignment mismatch, the way that the level appears to be built on the video capture could potentially be an artifact. There could be visual artifacts which cannot allow us to definitively use how the level was being shown to be built in the Billy Mitchell videotape as definitive evidence, is what I'm gathering out of it, which we could argue, with obviously when it comes to the way frames can be interpolated, the way that, video can be converted, the way that video can be captured. There can be anomalies, but I'm having a little bit of doubt thinking about that. I don't know if I necessarily jump and believe the whole frame alignment stuff. I know that artifacting can exist with videos, but this is pretty big if true. But again, that's just an expert opinion stating one of the facts here that they claim. Another issue not addressed is of component aging. The Donkey Kong boards are old and their various electronic parts are aging at different rates. All those components near failure, the potential for visual artifacts increases. That means there is no way to compare different Donkey Kong boards as their component failures most likely are in different parts. This includes the power supplies that power the Donkey Kong boards, and as those supplies age, we have no way of measuring how that aging will impact the Donkey Kong board operations and visual displays. As such, there may not be any way to compare the recording from the same board done at different times. In my opinion, component aging could produce the anomalies at issue. So if the anomaly from the aging makes it match an emulator, that is questionable, at least to me. I know that aging hardware can cause errant performance in software, but for it to match very closely to an emulator building a screen versus real hardware, it's something that I'm going to have to question. But he's right, there is no way to, I guess, accurately assess that. Another issue brought to mind is that the copies of videotapes. As videotapes are copied and handed out to someone who then makes copies, visual artifacts often appear as second and third generation and beyond copies are made. It is important to note that it is unknown how many generations of copies were created to arrive at the current videotapes. Another issue with respect to this is whether the videotape heads were cleaned before the copies were made, including whether Billy Mitchell was cleaning his VCR heads before he recorded the Donkey Kong play. It is my understanding that he did not. Further, it is my understanding that Billy Mitchell recorded his tapes at long play to save on the cost of videotapes. LP recordings are lower quality recordings and often record with much on tape visible noise. It is also my understanding that Billy Mitchell reuses videotapes without re-blacking the tapes beforehand. With dirty record heads, this means that previous recording information will bleed through and be visible. And in my opinion, this could produce the anomalies at issue. So again, because of the fact that we're recording on analog tape, and not everything is cut and dry, and there could be, I guess, potential artifacts that come from there, that also invalidates the video and doesn't make it accurate evidence. The wiring of test systems also seem to have the potential for causing visual anomalies. Questions like, do the video carrying cables drape over or near a power supply? Do the cables carrying the video shielded cables or unshielded cables? Which, look, a lot of this is actually going out to invalidating the video that has been recorded with, potential hiccups that can arise. Look, I'm not saying that video that old can have visual anomalies, right? That can happen at any given moment. Hell, you could have visual anomalies with HD video recorded right now. But the thing is, the question at hand is, can those visual anomalies all line up and make what we saw on screen match that of a MAME emulator?
Now, what I've seen over here is the expert has cast some reasonable, questions, reasonable doubt on the age of the evidence, some would say. Like, they're bringing up the fact that video artifacting can be a thing, and obviously the power output delivered to older boards can obviously cause some errant performance. But the thing about it is obviously everything should properly line up to basically produce what we saw, what we all have seen. So unless all of these artifacts and anomalies and dirty tape heads have caused the artifacting that has made Billy Mitchell's record and the footage of his actual game being built on screen appear like an emulator, that's a serious question. And that also, in my opinion, and again, I'm not the expert opinion over here, but that would require some serious stars to be aligned. However, all of this, information, this two-pager that was provided by the expert opinion has led to this settlement occurring.
So Twin Galaxies is committed to ensuring fairness for all parties and to allow and consider new information that becomes available. In addition, Twin Galaxies seeks to disclose any and all evidence so that individuals can form their own judgments. To that end, that expert opinion which I read is available for you to read as well. Twin Galaxies' mandate is to verify that submissions meet verification guidelines, not to investigate how they are produced. This latter area remains available to experts such as Dr. Zaida and other interested parties, who may examine and assess these matters for individual purposes. Twin Galaxies takes no official stance on the creation of submitted content, but can recognize and acknowledge Dr. Zaida's expert opinion. In fairness of the expert opinion provided by Dr. Zaida on behalf of Mr. Mitchell and consistent with Twin Galaxies' dedication to meticulous documentation and preservation of video game history, Twin Galaxies shall heretofore reinstate all of his official historical records. And again, if you go to the official historical records here, you can in fact find Billy Mitchell. So if we actually search for him, Billy Mitchell. Oh, right here. Look at that, Donkey Kong. Let's see what the records are. Load some data. Oh, I think they're still putting it back up.
Now, reading Twin Galaxies' statement, I don't believe that they're out there to exactly bend the knee necessarily to Billy Mitchell. They're restoring him on the historical database, and they're also acknowledging that their job was never really to properly investigate how evidence was produced. They're only acknowledging that an expert opinion weighed their, ideas on this, and they're acknowledging that, at least to them, new analysis has come to light. Again, with the future lawsuits that could happen, I'm not sure how Billy Mitchell is going to fare. But the other thing is, I feel like the settlement exists just to prevent more costly legal motion by both parties. So for somebody like Twin Galaxies, an organization which I don't think is necessarily making a lot of money, I think handing a settlement is probably better than continuing legal action for a case that ultimately is not going to be financially beneficial to them or their organization. And that's where I kind of feel about this. Honestly, I think settlements like this happen just to prevent, again, it's just cheaper to do this than it would be to pursue more years in court, which, as you all know, the only winners in cases like this end up just being the legal teams attached, because the amount they bill is pretty insane.
I think their site is currently trying to put him back up. But point is, Billy Mitchell at the end of the day got his scores reinstated in this on Twin Galaxies which is a organization that he has had a legal kerfuffle with for quite a long time at this point. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it really seems like the way that Billy Mitchell got himself reinstated was literally through the actual expert opinion of Michael Zaida. And he is an expert opinion for 36 law firms, 38 different cases, and 58 game and computing companies. And again, he's worked for numerous cases. He's worked for NotWorks versus Niantic Labs, Gentex versus Facebook, ZeniMax Media versus Facebook Oculus. So this man has been around the video game industry and covered some very, very serious cases in between very, very large organizations. So obviously, if he's considered an expert witness by the state of California, which is, from what I understand, where this case was held, his expert opinion was quite honestly the silver bullet that was brought out of nowhere from my research into this Billy Mitchell case, and it was literally the only thing used to bring his scores back.
Now, at the end of the day, if I'm looking at this from a slap motion perspective, obviously, Billy will probably take this as a W because everything was effectively removed, and at least from what I understand, Twin Galaxies put him up in the historical record section, and that's what it comes down to. But I personally believe, had this gone to court, I don't think it would have been good for Billy. And this is the problem I find with the U.S. legal system. It's almost like if you've got the money, you can just basically harass anybody you want, and when it comes time to punish, I guess when it comes time for this to actually go into the Coliseum, so to speak, it can all just be settled and pulled back. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the damages are there for both parties, right? Financially and reputationally even too. But then again, this is a settled issue. I don't know what's in the actual settlement, but I wouldn't say this is a win for Billy. I think at the end of the day, this looks like, again, just the legal system, personally, in my opinion, being used negatively. That said, though, Billy Mitchell will always be, I guess, a joke to a lot of people in the retro gaming community and the gaming community in general. But I guess Billy can walk around and, pat his back and whatnot. But it is what it is. Let's see what happens in the future. For that being said, right now, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.